President.
The senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, today in communities across our country, young people are asking whether they will be able to stay in the only country they've ever called home. Struggling patients and veterans are wondering whether their local community health center will be able to stay open and provide the care that they can't otherwise afford. Workers and business owners are wondering again whether the government will even be open in a week or two. But, Mr. President, instead of addressing the serious and pressing challenges that people are facing, Republican leaders today are debating whether to trust women to make their own health care choices. That's right. While this country is waiting for us to come together and solve problems, Republicans are wasting precious time with a politically motivated, partisan bill that is engineered to drive us apart and hurt women. I come here today to oppose, in the strongest terms, the extreme, ideological abortion ban that Republican leaders have brought to the floor today. It goes against the Constitution, against medical experts, and against the rights of women across the country. However, I don't merely oppose this partisan bill. I oppose the very fact Republicans are once again taking this bill, which they know is a non-starter, here to the floor. I oppose the very idea that in this 21st century, we are going to waste time on a question that has already been answered and shouldn't even be up for debate. I oppose the fact we're still voting on whether women and doctors are best equipped to make health care decisions, or politicians here in Washington, D.C. We are still voting on whether we should criminalize doctors for making sound medical decisions. We are still voting on whether we should turn back the clock and put women's lives at risk. Roe v. Wade was decided 45 years ago. We celebrated the anniversary of that historic decision last week. I'd like to think that after almost half a century, we could move on from debating this settled issue, and yet here we are. In 2015, the Republican leader stated quite flatly that a vote to defund Planned Parenthood would be an exercise in futility because there was no way it was going to pass. The same is true of this extreme, harmful legislation, and yet here we are. Bringing this bill to the floor is an exercise in futility, and passing it would be an exercise in cruelty. Just look at the story from a Washington State mother, Judy Nicastro. A few years ago, she wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, and she courageously shared a story that is every expecting woman's worst nightmare. Judy shared her experience in learning that one of the twins she was carrying had a lung condition. One lung chamber had not formed at all. The other was only 20% complete. "My world stopped," she wrote. "I loved being pregnant with twins. The thought of losing one child was unbearable." But she went on to say the MRI at the Seattle Children's Hospital confirmed our fears. The organs were pushed up into our boys' chests and not developing properly, and we were in the 22nd week. I'm grateful her doctors were able to give her sound medical advice. I'm grateful that she and her husband were able to make the decision that they felt was best for their own family. And I'm so grateful to Judy for sharing her story, which represents the incredibly painful decision she and so many other women have faced. Now, my colleagues might recognize that story. I shared it before. Just as Republicans have introduced this deeply harmful legislation before, I hope this time that Republicans listen. I hope they will stop trying to pretend they are in any way qualified to interfere with decisions that a woman has the constitutional right to make on her own. I hope they will stop trying to criminalize a doctor's ability to provide sound medical advice and protect the lives of his patients. I hope they will stop wasting our time with bills that are so out of date, extremely out of touch, and obviously unconstitutional. But if Republicans won't stop this exercise in futility and their attacks on women's rights, they should know I will not stop standing up and making clear exactly why they are wrong. They should know I'm going to keep fighting for Judy and so many other women and their families, and I will keep urging them to work with Democrats on the serious challenges that face our nation, none of which, by the way, have to do with trusting women or controlling their health care choices. I do want to thank the many Democrats who will be joining me here on the floor to stand up for women and deliver the same message to our Republican colleagues. And again, I hope they listen, because Democrats would like to get to work. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.